Hello, your seat is ready. Come on in for The Flower of Freedom by Deborah J. Reeves. This is chapter 87, and as always, all rights to the book and to my presentation of it are reserved. This chapter is entitled Time to Go, but for you it's time to arrive. Take your seat. Please make yourself comfortable. Leave all those burdens behind for just a few minutes out of your busy day. In under 10 minutes, usually closer to 8, we'll go through one chapter. We're ready to begin. Chapter 87, Time to Go. Each day until the end of the week, there were more visitors to Bertie's room. The warrior-hearted nurse had her protection instincts alerted by it, and although she could do nothing about the medical staff, who came and went as they pleased, she started closely monitoring strangers. The little chairs at the end of the corridor were always occupied, and she enforced a code of virtual silence upon those who sat there. People from the original group were permitted to come and go with a nod of her head, but others were given strict time limits and scowls. It was in the quiet moments and in the simple things that Philippe shone. He kept a watchful eye, and he truly saw the needs around him. Bertie always had an unending supply of interesting reading material. He always had a drink close to hand. Philippe was always there to dial his phone when he wanted to speak to his parents. Philippe was always looking out for Marie and Aki as well. He accurately relayed what the doctors had reported if they'd been out of the room. He was unfailingly helpful and kind and polite. He made himself almost invisible until the moment when he was needed, and then he was there to take on the smallest or the worst task with a smile. He thought he went unnoticed. He was wrong. Marie noticed. Bertie noticed that Marie had noticed, and Bertie was pleased. After Bertie had been in the hospital for almost 2 full weeks, he was released on a Friday morning just before noon. The doctors did not exactly give him a clean bill of health, but one did say, "If you were any more full of life, we would be writing up research papers on you as a medical miracle. It's time you left here before your good humor infects everyone and kills our business." Bertie did not need to hear that twice. While Aki went to administration to pay the bill, Bertie asked Philippe to help him get dressed. Bertie's hangdog look made it apparent to Marie and the lovely young nurse that Bertie was asserting a point of privilege in terms of manly modesty. They scampered out of the room. As she went, Marie asked Philippe to put all the remaining floral arrangements into the hall so that she could deliver them far and wide. Bertie stepped up and he found the largest basket containing fruit, and he transferred every edible he could find into it, leaving empty baskets strewn all around the room. Marie marveled at the teetering tower of fruit. She asked, "How are you going to get that out of here?" "Why do you think I've been studying those books on skyscrapers? This is well constructed. Everything is braced and supported. Chocolates, candies, and cookies are holding the fruit in place. Now, don't look at me like that. You'll be glad on that 6 or 7 hour drive to Paris, trust me." She shook her head and she left the room. They gave him space even when they heard him yell at Philippe, "Ouch! That wrist is broken, Philippe. It won't bend that way." Marie had delivered all the floral arrangements, and she waited in the hallway until Philippe threw open the door. He looked a little worse for wear, but Bertie was sitting on the bed, looking as though he was ready for a marathon. Luckily, the warrior nurse rushed past Marie with a wheelchair. Marie wouldn't have been brave enough to try to make Bertie sit in a wheelchair, but the warrior nurse smiled in a way that made it look like her face might crack. Marie looked at Bertie, and he was smiling back. He shook his head, and Marie watched the nurse smile more broadly and point to the wheelchair. It was all done in silence, but a moment later, Bertie smiled and stood to his feet. He walked a step toward the wheelchair, and he nodded. He took another step, and he kissed the warrior nurse's cheek. She blustered and blushed and pointed to the seat. Bertie sat. Marie noticed that Bertie was even smiling. How did that work? Marie wondered. Philippe and Marie rushed to carry Bertie's food edifice over to his lap. He was acting like a construction foreman as he belted out directions and warnings. Eventually it was settled on his lap, and Bertie was grinning. He tried to reach for a piece of candy underneath the top banana, but the warrior nurse scowled, and she said that she was not interested in cleaning up the room if that contraption fell apart. Bertie looked at her sheepishly, and his wounded bird act had no effect on the nurse. Maybe it did, though, because a moment later she planted a fat kiss on his cheek, and she told him that he was her favorite patient of all times. That's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed your little respite, and I hope very much that you will come back for chapter 88. It's called Paying the Bill. Now, before you leave, please give us a thumbs up and think about subscribing, because, as I said, it's the easiest way to find us again, because we don't know how to find you. Bye. Have a great day.